Today, I will be reading chapter 10 of the myth of Budda. Today, I will reach the conclusion of the story. Thank you in advance for listening. Chapter 10, Bob's Father. I was close to the dirt. My cap was wide with gills beneath it. Bits of the egg I'd burst through sticking to my cap in white speckles. Spores fell from me like flakes of skin. My stalk extended from the earth, connected to the river of surging white mycelium flowing beneath me. I rested there in silent darkness until I felt vibrations from a man's boot next to me. He knelt and plucked me from the ground. I recognized my father. His face was haggard. His eyes were red and watery, heavy sags sagging below them. A dirty, tangled beard grew from his gaunt face. His body was emaciated. A black depression hung about him. "A funny place for a mushroom," he said. He stood so still, he seemed to be frozen as he studied me, holding me close to his eyes in semi-darkness. "It might kill me or heal me, and I don't care which." He took a bite of my cap and gagged as part of me went down his throat. I felt myself both in his body and in the mushroom that was left. In a few moments, he had devoured all of me. I dissolved in his stomach's juices, my magic flowing through him. He dropped to his knees and groaned, rolling into the fetal position as if in pain. We were together in his mind then. He was a child at the kitchen table with his mother and younger brother. It was a Sunday morning, and they were dressed for church, except in their undershirts. Mama didn't want them spilling anything on their dress shirts. The eggs, grits, and bacon were steaming hot. Mama was quiet and angry. It was because Daddy didn't come home last night. He'd been out with his buddies for their Saturday night poker game and probably gotten too drunk to drive back. This was usual, but it still made Mama angry. She said nothing, but we could tell by how she was slamming dishes down harder than needed. This was a scene that repeated itself more Sundays than not. She took her seat and bowed her head to say grace. "Dear Lord, please help this family," she said. We thought she would say more, but she was trying not to cry. "In Jesus' name, amen," she managed to finish. "I'm sorry, Ma," Lee said. "He'll be back soon," Frank said. As if on cue, his truck pulled into the driveway at that moment. He walked through the back door and took his place at the table. He reeked of liquor. "That bacon smells amazing," he said. "Make a plate for me, Mary." She said nothing, but fixed his plate and placed it in front of him so hard it could have cracked. "Hey, woman," he said. "What's the matter with you?" "What's the matter with me?" she said. "I got up this morning, made breakfast, and got these children ready for church, and what were you doing? Sleeping off your drink at that low-down Dennis Baker's house and coming in here smelling like a damn brewery. And on the Lord's Day, no less. Not that it matters to you." "Oh, we had a good time playing cards, and maybe I had a bit too much to drink, but it was clean fun, Mary. You ought to try it sometime." "I don't touch those devil cards or that drink you love more than me or your children. I don't know what I was thinking marrying you." "The woman I married wasn't such a damn nag, but I'll be out of your hair as soon as I finish this grub. I got better things to do than listen to your damn griping." "Don't do that, Henry. Why don't you get a hot shower and meet us at church? It will be good for your soul." "I'd rather not," he said. Mama got quiet then. She bowed her head and stared down at her lap. Daddy ate his meal, indifferent to her mood. You ought to just come to church with us, Daddy, Lee said. It ain't that bad. We always put up with it. Nah, I ain't got time to pass with that bunch of hypocrites. Daddy stared at Mama. She was motionless, her head down and her eyes closed. Tears leaked from her cheeks. Damn, I shouldn't have even come back here, he said. He finished the last bite of his eggs and stood. I'll be seeing you, he said. No, Mama said from her seat. The word was tortured. She was weeping. Daddy huffed in disgust and went toward the door. Mama ran around him and blocked his way. Don't leave, she begged. Forget about church for today. Go get you some sleep, but please don't leave. Stay for the kids if you want for me. I'm leaving, Mary. Move out of the damn way. But Mama wouldn't move. Her face was grim. Daddy cursed, grabbed the sides of her arm with his, and flung her away from the door. Her forehead struck the wall, and she fell to the floor. He went outside and drove away without looking back. They helped Mama off the floor after he left. Her head was bleeding from where she struck the wall. A knot had already appeared there. She went to her room and came out a few minutes later, grim-faced but dry-eyed. She had changed into different Sunday clothes and washed her face. Let's go, she said. They went to church, sat quietly through the service, and came home. No one mentioned Daddy. That evening, Frank was on the porch, reading a school assignment by lamplight. Mama would probably call him in soon to take a bath and get ready for bed. Daddy came driving up again. He parked and stepped out. He saw Frank and came to sit with him, probably wanting to avoid going inside to face Mama. Daddy was sober now, but tired. He smelled like Old Spice. His hands were shaking. Daddy sat there beside him a long time without speaking. Eventually, Mama called him in. She acted like she didn't see Daddy at all. I started to stand up to do as Mama said. Hold on, Frank. I want to talk to you, Daddy said. He sat back down. Usually, Daddy only wanted to talk to him when he was in trouble. I do love your Mama, he said. I got something in me, though. It makes me drink. I get mad sometimes. I can't help it. Your Mama's a good woman, and I don't deserve her. Don't be like me, son. Be a good man. You hear me? Yes, sir. Frank, Mama called. Get in here right now and get your bath. You hear me? Yes, ma'am, he said. Frank didn't remember a conversation with his father after that. He thought it was the only one they ever had. He died of a heart attack a little over a month later. It was a Saturday night, and he collapsed while playing poker at Dennis Baker's house. Mama was out of tears for him by then. She went through the motions of mourning and carried on. Frank wanted to be a good man like his father told him to, but he never believed that he could be, especially after the Army. He killed a boy in the jungle. The boy had snuck by his watch and rolled a grenade under the ammo truck where his fellow soldiers were sleeping. Frank saw him too late, but dropped him with a shot. When he checked the body, the boy's youth made him puke. He had hit him in the chest. His wife was pregnant back home while he was out here killing children. But he couldn't think about that. Death was waiting for a moment's inattention to strike him down. It wore on him. He was thinking about Lynn when the kids slipped by. He was thinking about the way her legs looked in shorts and how they felt so soft when he touched them. It was a nice thought, but his wandering mind had gotten people killed. Lynn was the only person who ever cared for him, and he didn't deserve her. He just wanted to get back to her. That's all he wanted, but he had to be focused now. He went back to the truck to check on the guys. The vehicle was a smoking, twisted hulk, but he managed to pull Miller from the passenger seat. Stevens was smashed between the steering wheel and the sheet metal. His leg was hanging by skin below the knee. He was unconscious but still alive, his pulse barely discernible. There was no hope of pulling him free. In the back, the grenade had killed the other two men outright. He knew their names, but in the stress of the moment, couldn't recall them. He slung Miller over his shoulders and set off at a jog over the tangled road back toward the base in hopes of finding a medic. It seemed a harebrained plan, but it was the only thing that made sense to him. He fell into a trance as he jogged through the dark jungle with Miller slung across his back. He was an animal with no thought except to run. He ran all night and reached their camp just at dawn. He came to the medic's tent, who appeared used to bandaging soldiers in semi-darkness. Frank passed out from exhaustion while the medic worked. He was flown out in a chopper with Miller beside him. Miller lived, and Frank was awarded a commendation for his efforts to save him. It was a brutal reminder of his incompetence. He had let 4 men die and saved 1. He should have been punished, but was praised instead. He left the medal in a drawer somewhere after his discharge. He never wanted to look at it. This was the first time he had let himself think of it for a very long time. He brought himself back to the place where he had eaten the mushroom that was Bob. He sat Indian style in the darkness of a cave. "I can't be a good man," he said aloud. I took his hands in mine and held them. I looked in his eyes, but he couldn't hold the contact. We were no longer in a cave, but in the midst of a valley teeming with golden-capped mushrooms and purple wildflowers. I picked a mushroom and placed it in my pocket. It looked like the magic kind. "I can't be a good man," my father said again. "I never have been." "Do you believe I could ever become a good man?" my father asked. "Yes," I said. I still held his hands as he gained the courage to meet my eyes. They held an aliveness that had not been there before. My hands fell through his, and my body dropped through the ground beneath us. I fell through soil, roots, and water before emerging in another place. It was the white dimension my mother had written about. In my pocket was the mushroom I had plucked from the meadow. It was the only one I needed. The medallion my mother had gifted me was around my neck. I knew that you and the figure were somewhere above me, and when I watched the space carefully, I saw you. 2 dark dots in the distance. So small they might have been my imagination. But I knew it was you, so I came. Bob took Violet's left hand as the figure held her right. Together they floated toward the world it had prepared for this moment. They were the final ingredients needed to make him a being of cosmic power. "What's the plan?" Violet asked him. "I would rather show than tell," he said. She squeezed his hand, and he felt her confidence in him. Together, they floated to the place above the world where the 3 hands rested. Bob's medallion was a perfect replica. "We got to know each other," Violet said, nodding to the figure. "It told me its story." "I read of it in my mother's book," Bob said. "I have waited for this," the figure said in their minds. "I have constructed it so patiently, and it has come to fruition. We shall become gods today," it said. It reached down and placed its black hand on a white handprint. Violet followed its lead, placing her hand in the print next to his. Bob reached for his as well as the dark figure waited in anticipation. Before he touched the print, he took the mushroom from his pocket. There was a notch at the top of the object that seemed to be made for it, so he placed it there. The figure saw it too late. It screeched in their minds as they swirled together like mixing chemicals to somewhere else. Chapter 11. The Shaman's Route. They seemed to drop into a dark and endless hole that finally reached a bottom against rocky ground. He was holding Violet's hand, but there was no light to see her. Her hand told him they were real. He moved forward with one leg and then the other. Their feet made a muffled rhythm as they walked over the dark space without knowing where they were or where they were going. They only moved because motion felt more natural than stillness. "Is it with us?" Violet whispered. Bob tried to feel for him and found that it was there. It was not outside of him, but inside. "It's in me," he said. "Yes," she said. "It's in me as well." "Where do you think we are?" Bob didn't know. They walked a long way in the darkness. The figure inside of them seemed to be sleeping. They heard drumming before they saw a flickering light in the distance. As they walked, the drumming grew louder and the light brighter. "Is someone having a party?" Violet said. "Sounds like it," Bob said. Soon they heard voices chanting with the drums. The beat was infectious, growing louder as they approached the opening. As they came closer, a man walked towards them from the other side. They saw him shadowed against torchlight, a short man with a headpiece of horns and branches protruding. His eyes were bright, faintly glowing in the cave's darkness. He came towards them, carrying a small object in each hand. When they were close enough, they saw they were potato-shaped and coated in dirt. They each took one when he offered it to them. They felt solid as stone and smelled like smoke and bread. The man pantomimed, putting them in their mouths. Bob rubbed away the dirt and placed his teeth against the hard skin. He didn't feel it give, but when he examined the spot on the root where his lips had touched, it seemed to have softened. He placed it there again, biting gently. In less time than he expected, the skin softened and a sweet juice seeped into his mouth. Violet observed and followed his example. The root became as rubbery as gum in their mouths, and its sweetness spread over their bodies. The shaman stood before them, chanting to match the voices beyond him. He turned his back, and they followed him outside beyond the entrance. They felt as if they floated more than walked, because the sweetness made them feel so light. They came from the entrance of a cave into a throng of dancing, chanting people, all decorated like the shaman, with headpieces of horns and green branches, their skin as dark as the night. Their village rested beneath a canopy of trees so thick they couldn't have told day from night. They danced in a collective rhythm to the drummer standing on the hut's thatched roofs. Some of them held objects over their heads. They appeared to be smaller specimens of the roots they had chewed themselves. As they moved further from the cave's mouth, they were soon surrounded by the people pressing thickly against them, dancing to the drummer's rhythm. They moved in swirls and spirals over the bare ground around them. They began to hand them the smaller roots they carried. They ate them as they were offered. They tasted sweeter, and their insides were pulpier than the ones they were first given. The roots made them feel ever lighter, as if they would float away if they weren't held down. They felt joined with the people, moving with them as if they were a single flowing organism. Bob surveyed the crowd and noticed no one else was eating the roots. They appeared to be only for them. He stopped dancing to try to better understand what was happening. As if in tune with his mood, the crowd ceased to dance as well. The drumming continued. The man from the cave, their shaman, was suddenly between them. He flashed his hands across the ground before them, and a pool of clear liquid appeared at their feet. They saw their reflections there. Violet's body was itself on her right side, and her left was cast in darkness. Bob's body was the same, except dark and light on the opposite side. They had not defeated the figure. It had taken refuge inside of them, and maybe it would soon possess them, both like the cordyceps absorbing an insect. The shaman held another of the roots out to them. This one was prismatic and shimmering. He pulled a sharp knife from a sheath at his waist. Figures of unknown writing were carved on its side. It glowed a ghosty yellow. Her arm shone red with green painted nails. His eyes glowed and his face was stern. He raised the knife and cut the root in half in a single slice. They had no choice but to consume the halves as the people watched, the drummers on the roofs keeping a constant beat. As the root's juice flowed through her, she understood these were the people born from the woman the figure's master had murdered so flippantly. Her lover's tears had fertilized her fallen body, and the first of them was born. She and Bob's coming was a prophecy, and now it was happening. The root they had eaten last was to purge the figure from their bodies, and now they were floating away like dust grains in a breeze. They held one another's hands as they lifted into the air, until they rose above the drummers in the canopy. They climbed higher as the trees below them became miniature. Their bodies merged and condensed. The two of them and the figure swirling together so they couldn't tell whose body was whose. Its mind flooded theirs, an ocean of memories compared to the drop that was theirs. Its darkness was like acid against their skin. They held on to one another as it shrieked supersonic screams through their bodies and minds. Eventually, the cries subsided like a violent storm wearing itself down. They absorbed it, its blackness turning cream inside of them. Their bodies became like clouds, slowly dispersing to vapor, their cells falling to fertilize the ground below. "Is this the end of us?" Violet asked Bob in his mind. "It is a beginning," he said. There was an energy in his words that gave her faith. The ground was a speck below them. They stretched over the sky, the clouds shaped as their bodies, their fingers stretching out to touch the other. They slowly turned to amorphous clouds floating over a blue sky, their essence drifting to the earth below. As they dissolved, they lived many lives. In many, they were together. Bob saw himself looking down at his green hand wrapped around a cup of streaming liquid. Violet sat across from him. They were in an upscale cafe overrun with canopies of vines, mushrooms, moss, and ferns. A contentment filled the atmosphere. Nature had taken hold here, even in the midst of a bustling city. His drink was strong, but he liked the flavor. In another, he overlooked a vast jungle. He had grown thick limbs and evergreen branches. His skin was cased in splintery layers of bark. Many creatures lived upon him. Birds perched and nested in his limbs. Violet was a red vine growing thickly against him, her crimson tendrils showing against the tree so that it stood out amongst the others in this ancient forest where few intruded. Violet rode giant centipede things in the white dimension, with Bob's arms wrapped around her waist. To her right were two children with tinted green and peach skin. They rode centipede things of their own. They all laughed, caught in the thrill of the moment. She remembered futures without him, as an artist, a painter, an actor, a singer, a woman devoted to spirit. She knew happiness in many of these memories, but it was in these lives that the figure always clung closest to her. It was only when they were together that it did not plague them through their days. Their love kept it at bay. Finally, they were beneath the cover of a tin roof on the porch of a shack. It was familiar to Bob, the one he had built for himself. Violet's head rested on his chest as they lay in his hammock on their porch. He couldn't see him, but he knew Mac the alligator was with them. He always knew where Max was. Violet wasn't surprised to find herself here. "Here we are," Bob said. They rose from the hammock and stood on the porch steps. The morning air was still and hot. It lay heavy on their skin. Mac came to settle at Violet's feet. She rubbed the place on the top of his head where he liked to be scratched. "Do you think all of that was real?" she said. "As real as any of this," he said. "What about the figure?" she said. "It's always lurking somewhere." The medallion with the symbol of the three hands was around his neck. She lifted it to study it better. "This feels real enough," she said. There was no hint of a breeze. A hazy fog hung over the water. "Do you think we changed things?" she asked. He tried to feel if something was different. There was a freshness, but maybe it was his imagination. A heron flew towards them, low across the swamp. It dove suddenly into the murky water and emerged with a writhing fish in its beak. It turned in its flight and disappeared into the mangroves. Bands of concentric circles rippled across the water in its wake. The two of them rested on Bob's porch, content to remain as still as the morning. The end. Hello. If anyone listened to this all the way to the end, I'm very thankful for it. As I was reading, I noticed that I needed to add a lot of illustrations, and it wouldn't hurt to add more detail to the story as well. Maybe people in the comments could let me know if they felt the story was complete or if there still needed to be more added to it. And if anybody has suggestions of some illustrations they'd like to see, I would be welcome to that too. I am going to go back and add illustrations and see if I can make the chapters I've read flow a little more freely as well. Thank you again for listening to this reading of The Myth of Budda, and I'll be adding more content as soon as I get a chance. And don't forget to like and subscribe.